Good time to stop.
Good way to good segue. I've been considering matricide for about 20 years now.
I had been. I'm past that point. So
right. Had past tense, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, up until about 25, it seemed like the only option.
Fair. And speaking of past tense, I was also calling you Zach. Josh, it has been almost a year since last time you were on the show.
It has. And boy, are my arms tired. That's not how that works.
It's been a long time, folks.
It really has.
Yeah. So on this episode of the Culture Cast, I'm still your host, Chris Dashew. I'm joined by my good friend all the way from somewhere in Texas, possibly in the southeastern quadrant, the event supervisor.
Yes.
For the Alamo Drafthouse. And if you know me, that's a shock. My good friend, Josh Stewart.
Hi, everybody.
Josh, how do you feel about Peter Jackson's films? Are you a fan?
I'm generally a fan. God, what was the last thing he made? I can't even.
That Beatles.
Does he make things anymore? Oh, no, that doesn't count.
That does count. It does count. Okay, last narrative thing he made.
It was the those Hobbits, wasn't it?
Mortal Engines.
Did he direct that, or did he?
Sure did.
I thought he produced it. I don't know.
Nope, he directed it too.
Nobody saw it. So.
No, he didn't direct it. Never mind. You're right. What does it matter if he did? Right.
It was the last Hobbit movie probably, and I missed that one, but I saw the other two.
Yeah. Last narrative was the last Hobbit movie.
Yeah, and I just, I generally love the guy. I even like King Kong. I didn't dislike the two Hobbit movies that I saw. I didn't watch The Lovely Bones because I don't know how you could turn that into a PG-13 story, plain and simple. But
I don't know why you would want to watch a movie based on that book anyways, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm going to watch it someday, and the only reason is because I will watch anything for Stanley Tucci, but it's also going to expect me to take Mark Wahlberg seriously, and that's going to be really hard for me.
And it's going to also expect you to take Stanley Tucci seriously as a serial killer just because they gave him a mustache.
Well, I mean, isn't that how,
creepy guy with mustache? Don't all serial killers have mustaches? No. Well, technically, I guess the women in this film, the final film of Pride Month that we're going to be talking about, Heavenly Creatures, they don't have mustaches. Uh-oh. It's a weird transition. I don't know where we're just.
It's okay. I didn't hear it because everything cut out.
It's 11:40 at night, and none of these women have mustaches. We're talking about Heavenly Creatures.
They were two young girls living in a world of imagination.
I'm going to the fourth world. It's an absolute paradise of music, art, and pure enjoyment.
What they had was friendship.
What a disgrace you are.
Your mother is rather a miserable woman.
What they needed was freedom.
Do you like your mother?
No.
What they shared was a secret.
Your daughter's been behaving in a rather disturbed manner.
What's she done?
I think I'm going crazy. I'm sure it's perfectly innocent.
The crime that shocked the nation.
People die every day. Only the best people fight against all obstacles in pursuit of happiness.
Paul thought it up.
Aren't you clever?
We're not going to be separated. I hate you.
She's uncontrollable.
Based on a true story.
It's all frightfully romantic.
Heavenly Creatures.
Oh, there we go. Well, yeah
Yep. It's 11:40 at night. Just let's do it, baby. So the film is directed by Peter Jackson, written by Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson. Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson did collaborate on almost everything because Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson are married in real life.
They be collaborating in the bed and everything.
They be collabo, big collab, little collab, collabs that ride on trains. This film stars Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky as Juliet Hume and, oh my God, I always forget the other one's name. I'm such an ass. And Pauline Parker, two girls in New Zealand. One shows up in New Zealand from England. The other one is a New Zealand native. And they form a special bond. Let's put it that way. This is the final film of Pride Month. So they form a special bond that becomes sexual. I don't know how else to put it. And some things happen like matricide. A lot of things happen in this movie. This is a wild one, frankly. There's a lot going on. Josh, I do have to ask you right out of the gate. First time you saw this movie was not this time, right?
No, I was probably in high school. I feel like that's probably the appropriate time to see something like this. And it was when I was kind of riding high as, the weirdo that had to hunt down Meet the Feebles and, had that worn out VHS of Bad Taste. And I even think I saw Forgotten Silver. Like nobody saw Forgotten Silver in America.
Right.
But, I was riding high. And I was aware that was kind of the one where it sort of made people stand up and pay attention and go, wait, this guy's got something to say every once in a while. And yeah, I was impressed with it then. I think having had the passage of time, there are things that I can appreciate from it now that I wouldn't have been able to at the time. So it's very, I'm glad that I had a reason to go back to it.
Yeah, so I had never seen this before. It's been on my list of things to watch. I asked you, hey Josh, what are your thoughts on Peter Jackson? Let's just get this out of the way. Peter Jackson made three of my favorite movies. I love, and cannot stop watching and never will. Those three original Lord of the Rings movies. They're perfect. Absolutely perfect. They're some of the best book adaptations I've ever seen. Are they perfect? No. But you know what? They're damn near perfect. Do they have Tom Bombadil? No, but go fuck yourself. Tom Bombadil doesn't need to be in the movie. They would have added nothing, you purist monsters. But I had never seen this. I had seen Dead Alive. I had seen The Frighteners, which I'm a huge fan of. I have seen King Kong. Yeah. I don't remember King Kong. I would like to revisit King Kong. I keep trying to get Mike to do an episode of King Kong with me, but it's a hard sell. The movie's goddamn 3 hours. I'm kind of a fan of Tintin. Tintin's not terrible.
Yeah, that Tintin movie was really fun.
It's like the best Indiana Jones movie, not about Indiana Jones, that's not called The Mummy. You know what I mean? It's like tonally very close to Indiana Jones.
It's a very specific type of adventure.
Yeah. So, for me, Peter Jackson occupies this weird space because as much as I like things like Dead Alive, which is a fantastic body horror / zombie movie. You couple that with Meet the Feebles, which is its own weird puppet thing. And then you have this movie, which takes those sensibilities that Jackson has in all these other movies, the practical effects sensibility, and then pairs it with what I would consider, and I don't know where you come down on this, Josh, a rather serious, dramatic film and punches it up with daring visuals and a visual style that takes this movie from something I would have no interest in watching, frankly, because this is not that I don't like these kind of movies. They're just not my bag. And I'm allowed for them to not be my bag. These like straight drama, super maudlin, melancholy films, not my bag. This movie with this injection of this weird Peter Jackson style turns it into something completely different. A truly unique, dramatic retelling of a thoroughly disturbing murder.
Oh no. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Okay. And we're back. I was not here. I'm sorry. Your internet connection is unstable. Okay. Now we're back. I'm sorry.
It's always something. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You don't control the internet.
I know.
No, I know you want to have bad internet, Josh.
So anyway, let's see.
I was talking about the style being injected.
I was going to say for a story like this, there's always got to be a hook. There's always got to be something to set it apart, because we've seen stories like this a million times. And the main thing is that this is a true story, but the element of fantasy being mixed into it is really what sets it apart. And I'd almost forgotten how much of that was in there. It had been so long. I remember the details of what had happened and what led up to it, but I completely forgot about the whole, secret garden basically that happens in the middle of the movie. And that's probably the most fascinating stuff, because that's what you're not going to read if you just read some, documentation of a murder case.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. So like we mentioned, this is based on a case from the 50s where two young girls murdered one of the young girls' mothers because one of the girls was being taken away, and the girls believed that by murdering this girl's mother, that would keep her there. Again, their reasoning, I'm not going to say it's delusional, but it's being coerced and manipulated by they're manipulating their own reality, which is kind of one of the big things here. They create their own reality in this secret garden. And like you said, there's this whole thing of they create this world to escape into, to feel like they have control, because they don't have control in their own lives because they're 13-year-old kids. And because they don't have control in their own lives, they create this world that they have complete control over. And when the real world starts encroaching on this magical secret fourth world, it's when problems start arising in the real world. And it's that detachment that they feel that really amplifies the drive and the need to murder Pauline's mom. It's like, because it's encroaching on that fantasy world that we kind of mentioned they created. And this is all real. They're reading from the journal entries of Pauline Parker throughout the film. And Melanie Linsky is just, verbatim regurgitating them narration style. But like you said, you wouldn't have gotten any of this if it had been any other director. Frankly, any other director probably would have approached this very boilerplate.
Yeah, Peter Jackson's the kind of guy who would look at a story and say, now, how can I fit special effects into it?
Right. How can I punch this up?
The most diegetic way to do that with something that has no fantasy elements at all.
Right. Which is, for me, like you've mentioned, you kind of forgot how much there is in the movie. That was like the draw for me, was knowing that there is this unique visual look to the film that only Peter Jackson can bring. And maybe not only Peter Jackson, but I associate him with a very adept and precise eye for the look of things. Like when I think of the Lord of the Rings movies, I know that Peter Jackson was behind a lot of the decisions that were made to make things look a certain way. Because if you go and watch all the documentaries and listen to all the interviews and commentary, he breaks down like they were sitting every day and rewriting the script to make sure it was perfect. They were working with Weta. I mean, they created Weta essentially so that Peter Jackson could work with people that he could work with directly who knew what he wanted. Now everybody works with Weta, but Jackson created Weta because he was like, I know what I want and I want you to execute what I want. And it takes a lot of balls to do that. In a lot of ways, you could draw comparisons between Peter Jackson and George Lucas.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Except that one of them knows how to tell a story. Oops.
I think one of them knows how to tell a story and the first time.
Yeah.
And not try to go and fix things after.
I should be more specific. I think one of them better understands human emotion and interaction better.
Well, and the other thing is with Peter Jackson, his three most well-known films are adaptations of source material. So he's working from something that is existing already, which, some people will say, well, it's not Star Wars where it's his own original idea. Star Wars ain't an original idea really either. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, like that's Star Wars.
All the Japanese movies it was based on, the fact that they were trying to make Flash Gordon first, all that.
Right, exactly. So, the Lord of the Rings movies are an adaptation of a pre-existing source material, but they're executed damn near flawlessly.
Yeah, when you look at all the soulless knockoff garbage that came out around the same time, every other, wannabe fantasy series that couldn't take off.
Yeah, there are plenty of them.
There's almost exclusively failures.
Right. And, on a recent episode of the show, we were talking about Ice Pirates, which exists in a post-Star Wars world.
Oh, yeah.
Like fantasy movies exist now in a post Lord of the Rings world. That is how much it changed the genre, into what it is now. Like Game of Thrones as a TV show doesn't exist without Lord of the Rings as a movie. Like we're talking that level of influence on a genre specifically. Lord of the Rings changes the fantasy genre entirely for the better, I think, really, frankly. But at the same time, now Peter Jackson doesn't do anything. Like he never makes movies. Yeah. Which is kind of a bummer because this movie is amazing. Make more of these, please.
Apparently he's been, diligently cleaning up his first three movies for, 4K restorations sometime in the future, which, I would like to have that. Yeah. I'd like to have a definitive version of Brain Dead / Dead Alive because there's so many different cuts of it that just float around all over the place. I'd like one perfect one, please.
I'm with you.
I mean, yeah, that was really, as fucked up as it sounds, that's probably where it all started for me. I might have, like, I was a weird kid. I think I might have seen the Frighteners first, but like I saw that way too young, because I remember there was a night where it was on TV and my mom said, it was like a Saturday night, and I wanted to stay up late. And my mom said, well, you can watch this or you can go to bed. And I was like, well, I'm not going to bed, bitch. So,
I'm going to watch the fucking Frighteners. Big mistake.
No, Dead Alive. It was Dead Alive.
Oh, Dead Alive. Never mind.
On IFC,
wow.
I remember.
Wow.
So yeah, that probably warped me at an early age, I think, because I think she thought I was going to take the bait and go to bed. No.
Well, and you know, the crazy thing is, for me, like, I honestly always thought after seeing Dead Alive, I was like, I don't know if Peter Jackson can top this, because that, as much as I like Lord of the Rings, I think Dead Alive is still my favorite Peter Jackson movie.
Oh yeah, and it's pure willful force. Like right. Every single frame of that movie is just bleeding his soul. Right. You know, it just, there's nothing in there that's not deliberate all the way. And for it to be thrown in, you know, all that effort to be thrown into, you know, a goofy, disgusting horror comedy, it makes it, you know, so that much better.
Where the term rebirth comes into play. Forced rebirth, forced in-birth and rebirth. But you know what I will say? This might be my new favorite Peter Jackson movie. This movie is a masterpiece. And I do not say that lightly. This is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And I stake a lot of it on three things. Peter Jackson's direction, obviously. Kate Winslet is amazing. But I will tell you, hitting the jackpot is what I would call finding Melanie Linsky.
Absolutely.
As an actress. Because are you fucking serious? This is her first movie? Like, yeah. Excuse me?
And I always think about how, like, everybody thinks of Peter Jackson's like, oh, this big award-winning, you know, crazy spectacle effects director. But like, he found two of the best, you know, women on screen that we have had for this generation. Yeah. He found them both for the same movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've only properly appreciated one of them, and that's not fair. Melanie Linsky for years was relegated to, oh, she's that crazy bitch on 2.5 Men. Like, really?
which is crazy to me, right?
Yeah, I had the misfortune of being in a place where that was playing once, and she popped up on screen, and I got really excited because I had no idea she was on the show. And then it was just the worst, like, crazy woman stereotypes imaginable. And I was like, oh no, she deserves better than this. And I think in recent years, she's finally starting to get that, but my God.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, you know, like you said, it is unfortunate because we as a kind of film going, at least not like, you know, most, I would say average film goers do know who Kate Winslet is. Obviously.
Mm-hmm. Everyone saw Titanic.
Whether
they wanted to or not.
I have not seen Titanic.
But you know Titanic.
Everybody knows the story. The boat sinks.
Yeah, I waited about.
Chris, thanks.
I waited about 10 years to watch it. It was good. It was, you know, I won't be one of those assholes. Like, it definitely nails what it wants to be.
Sure. I really have a hard time with James Cameron movies, because James Cameron to me is like, what if Peter Jackson was not self-aware?
Then
you get James Cameron.
Oh, you mean like how he also keeps saying, sure, I'll release a Blu-ray of The Abyss and True Lies someday, and then he'll never do it.
He's too busy working on Avatar. Who gives a shit? 2, 3, 4, and 10.
One of my buddies is working on the effects for those, so I hope they do great.
I hope they do great too, but like, nobody has been sitting for the last 10 years asking for more Avatar.
And also, I saw that all the sequels have Jermaine Clement in them, so I'm on board. That's all I need.
Sure, fair. Still pointing out the fact nobody asked for him.
Yeah, no. I mean, they did, but it was over a decade ago, and then they forgot.
Yeah, not only is nobody asking for them now, but definitely nobody's asking for 3 more movies past the first.
No, I think we're looking at 4 right now.
Oh, good. Is this like a Fantastic Beasts thing where hopefully after the 3rd one's not good, they just stop making them?
We'll see. I would like to be pleasantly surprised.
Sure.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Sure. The first Avatar was
fine.
Whatever, really, right?
It's fine. It's not his best movie by a long shot.
No, that would be True Lies, the anti-Muslim film.
Yeah, that's one that just, you know, it's unfortunate because without that cultural side of it, that movie's ridiculously fun.
That movie's amazing. Like,
yeah.
Everything about that movie is amazing. But yeah, then you have the whole...
even the video game is good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, deep cut. Where's the Heavenly Creatures video game? Kill your mom. Beat your mom to death with a brick and a sock. Yeah, so that's the funny thing. I forgot that Kate Winslet was also discovered in this movie. Because for whatever reason, I thought like she had done a couple things beforehand. Nope. First goddamn movie. Wow. Mm-hmm. And they're perfect. Not only they're perfect separately as their respective roles as Juliet Hume and Pauline Parker, but they're also their chemistry. It's a believable love story. It's a subversive love story, not because are they gay?
At that age, do you ever know?
Well,
at this age, do you ever know?
Yes, I know now. I do know now more or less.
Some people don't.
That's fair. Well, that's fair. That's fair. I was more asking the relationship it's presenting as a gay relationship. But like you said, I don't believe that. I mean, they've come out since the actual women involved and said it wasn't a gay relationship. But again, it's presented that way.
Yeah.
But the issues with the relationship, and this is the thing I liked about the movie. Again, I can't really speak to the real case. I would assume Jackson did his research. The issue in this movie is not that they're in a gay relationship. It's just that they're spending too much time together and getting lost in their own world.
Mm-hmm.
I did appreciate that angle because that felt rather contemporary as opposed. Go ahead.
In a hackier story, it would have just been about the gay.
Right. Careful. She's going to bring the gay over. Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
And then we're all going to catch it.
Right. I think we caught the gay. Yeah. And, like you said, in a movie that is not nearly as well done as this one, and boy, there are plenty of movies like this one that are not nearly as well done. They would have really hung the lantern on, oh, they're gay. And oh my God, how, don't be gay and don't be in a gay relationship. It's like, no, in this, she's just viewed, Juliet Hume is just viewed as a bad influence on Pauline Parker. Cause, of course, Juliet's mom is a little bit more cosmopolitan and her parents are a little bit more kind of free with their love, one might say. And Pauline Parker's family is the kind of more reserved New Zealand, stereotypical conservative family. And that's where the divide comes in. And I liked that because it adds a different angle to the story, one that I wasn't expecting, where it's kind of a haves and the have-nots a little bit. You can't help but feel like there is a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of the class divide.
Right.
It's just when you're hanging out with the bad kid from the wrong side of the tracks.
Right. The bad kid who's introducing you to all these crazy things like Mario Lanza.
That was the thing. I had completely forgotten how much Mario Lanza was in this. Wow.
More Mario Lanza than I think even Mario Lanza is comfortable with. There's like 5 or 6 Mario Lanza songs in the movie. They talk about him a lot in the first half. They talk about him a fair amount because they're like
that's really what they connect over at first.
Right. Is the music, and then once they've connected over the music, they start connecting over Juliet's writing and kind of this fourth world where they've created, where it's heaven without Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like heaven to me. Can they just go to their own heaven, not with the rest of us? Be my guest. But I will say the thing I appreciated the most about this movie is, once again, Peter Jackson has this innate ability to really make his movies feel like they're set in New Zealand, even if it's a Lord of the Rings movie, even if it's the Frighteners.
Mm-hmm. That touch.
Yeah. He has that innate ability to be like, I'm a New Zealander, a proud Kiwi. This is a story that we need to tell.
Yeah. It's very much, this is where I'm from. This is who I am, and I can't shake it. So Here it is.
And that's honestly, that's the way I kind of internalize a lot of what's going on in this movie. This is Peter Jackson's story, not only about, 2 women who love each other and their relationship, but also this is what the country of New Zealand means to me. And this is something that's important to us as a country, because this is like one of the biggest murder cases in the history of the country. So that's the thing, the trailer is like, the murder case that shocked the country. It's like, not this country, that country. That's the thing. Not a lot of people in this country. This was not a major news topic in this country.
Oh yeah, especially with the way things worked back then. We weren't interconnected.
Right. So, this was also in 94, ostensibly a story that a lot of Americans had never heard. So they were going into this movie completely unaware as to what they were expecting. And then you get clay, mud. I don't know what is going on, frankly. Mud guys, clay men.
Yeah. I
don't know what it is visually. They look like clay.
But yeah, it looks incredible though.
Right. Well, again, I mean, that's a testament to Peter Jackson's ability to seamlessly integrate, because this movie does have digital effects. I mean, this is 94, so it is using some digital effects. It uses those digital effects to transition us into that fourth world seamlessly, and it still looks good in 2022. This movie is 28 years old now. Horrifying.
Stop that.
It looks really good. It still looks really good. Like the digital effects look great, and the practical effects I think still work really well.
Oh yeah, they still. If anything, they probably affected me more deeply than they did the first time. I don't think when I was younger, I don't know that I was really set to appreciate the work that went into that. I was like, well, of course he can do that.
Right.
Like that's what he does. But
yeah. One, to be fair, that is what he does.
But that was the first time he'd really done anything on that scale too.
Right.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I can't remember if I'd seen Lord of the Rings or Heavenly Creatures first, because I was, I'll never remember. Oh, well.
I know which I saw first. And like, if you put Lord of the Rings Fellowship, Dead Alive, and this movie, and you played them back to back to back and asked me, name the filmmaker who made all three of these movies, I would not give you the answer as the same person made all three.
Oh, no.
Which is a testament to Jackson's ability as a director as well to deftly navigate genres with an ease that directors just generally don't have. He is a horror director. Yes?
Absolutely.
Right? And yet...
it's just that those sensibilities translate so well to anything else if you know how to use them right.
Right. Which is why I love Peter Jackson so much as a director. I was having a discussion with friend of the show and, amazing podcaster, obviously in his own right, Mike White of the Projection Booth, about Peter Jackson. And I kind of came to a conclusion that Peter Jackson's career is the career I wish Sam Raimi had, where he finally branched out and did something big to make a statement on. And, I'm not saying Evil Dead's not that, but Evil Dead's not Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is your statement piece. Peter Jackson will be known for Lord of the Rings until long after he's dead and gone. Like, nobody's going to remake Lord of the Rings. And no matter how hard Amazon tries, they will never remake Lord of the Rings. There's no need or reason to remake it. And it's a contemporary film. And so, for me, when I think about Peter Jackson, that's what I think about. I think about a director who came up like Sam Raimi did, like Robert Rodriguez did, like Tarantino did in a lot of ways, making these small, subversive movies that I want to make. I mean, even Kevin Smith, right? Like these, people that are making these auteurs, if you want to call them.
Yeah, the DIY.
Right, making these movies on a shoestring budget. And then, lo and behold, 10 years later, you've got Peter Jackson making Lord of the Rings with New Line, with a couple $100 million budget, with 300,000 swords being made or whatever fucking insanity. I mean, just go watch those documentaries about Lord of the Rings and the making of it. It'll make your head spin.
Yeah, I tried to, and I legitimately got overwhelmed with the amount of detail that had to go into it, and I just backed out.
Right. I think one of the facts that always cracks me up is I think the oven at Weta where they bake the prosthetics and stuff. Mm-hmm. Was running for 3 years straight. Was something to that effect, where it's like they couldn't stop running it because they needed to keep making prosthetics for the actors or things for the production.
Whereas I will always remember the behind the scenes they made for Bad Taste, where it shows him baking the creature suits in his mom's kitchen oven.
Right.
And the more things change, the more they stay the same. You still got to use an oven.
Exactly.
Except, I think on Bad Taste, they carved all the guns out of wood and just painted them.
Which is amazing.
He had to actually scratch muzzle flares into the film. Like, early on, he was figuring out the illegal ways to do things and they all worked.
Right. Well, and again, like you've said, I mean, when someone, if you're the person who, when someone says to you, you can't make a movie, your response is, oh, yes, I can, then that's a Peter Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've mentioned, these are people who, instead of looking at making a movie as a hurdle, they look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah. And how do I innovate? How do I make it work?
Right. And then you come to something like Heavenly Creatures, where Peter Jackson is, at the time, I mean, again, like we've mentioned, Peter Jackson, at this point in his career, this is not the kind of movie anyone would expect him to make. This is actually a complete 180.
Yeah. It you can still go back and look at, reviews and articles from the time, and they don't understand how it came from, the guy that made those gross ass movies from a couple years earlier.
Right. Because, like you've mentioned, right before this is Brain Dead, and then Meet the Feebles and Bad Taste. So, like, if you watch those movies, which you should, and then come to this, you're like, what the fuck? I mean, Lord of the Rings, maybe you could be like, oh, I can kind of see it. But this movie, the visual effects stuff is kind of it. But outside of that, like, this is a very mature filmmaker making a film that is,
it's a
deeply personal project in a way.
Yeah, it's a period piece drama. Like, that's all it is. But he figured out a hook.
Right.
He figured out how to set it apart.
Right. And he operates in a space where, as long as you're on board with it the first time he does it, he can keep doing it. And he does. He does it multiple times throughout the movie. But I think getting you over that first initial hump, where you see that scene where, Kate Winslet's like, we could just go into our own magical world. And Pauline Parker's like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then it transitions into that scene, and she's like, okay. It's like you, along with Melanie Lynskey, are along for that ride. You are buying into it as much as she is. And you're believing that, there is this world that these two girls have created that they can go into and kind of escape into. This is essentially Murderous Bridge to Terabithia.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Right?
Literally.
Is it not?
Except that, like, I'm never going back to that one. Oh my God.
I
remember reading that in 3rd, 4th grade, and oh no, I cannot.
Yeah. I mean, Mother of God, The Bridge to Terabithia.
Yeah.
I was shown that in like elementary school.
I never even saw the movie. I'm
talking the original, like the TV movie.
Oh, that's right. There was a TV movie. I don't remember if I saw that. I remember the movie they made a while back, and
with fucking
I think Robert Patrick was in it.
No, it's isn't it PETA with Josh Hutcherson? Yeah. No thanks. I don't want to watch a movie about children dying while having fun.
Yeah. Robert Patrick was in it. Yep. Okay, weird. I'm not going crazy.
Was he chasing after chilldren?
I think he was Josh Hutcherson's dad.
Weird.
And it was directed by I'm gonna destroy this, but Gabor Supo from like Klasky Supo, like Rugrats.
Like Rugrats?
Yeah. I had no idea that he directed this. That's weird as fucking hell.
What a weird, speaking to like childhood trauma films, because they have a lot in common, strangely. This really is like that different head of the same coin. It's like, what if the kids in the world of Terabithia felt like the outside world was encroaching on them and they had to fight back? Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of this comes down to, is this, the dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots and the real world and the fantasy world, and that like blurring of the line, because that's ultimately what this movie comes down to, right? It's that blurring of the line is why Melanie Lynskey and Kate Winslet do what they do. Because it's, to them, it's not that there aren't any stakes, but the stakes are too high to not address it, to not do something about it. At least that's what they've convinced themselves, rightfully so or not. I understand and appreciate where the two characters and the two women were coming from. They don't want to be separated, but beating your mom to death with a sock filled with a brick it's a drastic step.
Yeah, I feel like there are cleaner ways to do it.
Well,
if you feel like that's your only option.
Right.
For considering how creative they clearly were.
Right. It's, and that's the thing. I think when you look at it, though, it speaks to, while they have created this
desperation.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, like, they are detached from reality, because someone operating rationally would know better than to murder their mother, thinking that it would do anything other than put them in a massive degree of hot water and or in fucking jail. So,
but there's also that youthful untouchability that you think you can get away with anything because nothing's knocked you down yet.
Right. And Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky bring that to their roles. They bring that kind of they bring Melanie Linsky, that stare that she has is just stop you dead in your fucking tracks. Just deadlights, man. Manson lights, 100%. Just sitting there staring through you, angry. You can see it on her face, just like the pure anger and rage. No, mother, you have it. Jesus Christ. But then you get to their punishment and they didn't really get punished. Yeah. So maybe they were right.
Yep.
I mean, again, like that's...
I mean, we don't know how the legal system in New Zealand works. I come from the land of, the more mentally disabled somebody is, the more likely they're going to get put on the electric chair. So
I was going to say, more likely they're not even going to make it to jail and they're going to get shot in the streets.
That too. Yeah, I guess the old electric chair days are finally over.
Yeah.
It's still, we'll never forget.
The two women in this film, they served 5 years in prison?
Yeah, because they were considered too young to know any better, I guess.
Too young to face the death penalty, which, I guess means too young to know any better. And supposedly, the condition of their release was they would never see one another again.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like something you can
how
actually...
how enforceable is that?
That's like when, like if you steal something from Walmart and they're like, you're banned from all Walmarts. How the fuck are you going to know?
Yeah, like,
I'm going to go to a Walmart in North Dakota. What you going to do about it?
Yeah, like, are you really going to spend all of your time worrying about that?
Like, I'm sure if somebody told you, yes, you could do something about it, but I doubt it's going to happen.
Like that guy should not be allowed in Walmart. Why? He's banned from a Walmart in California somewhere. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, they don't, why would they care? Yeah. And well,
it's right up there with when you're in high school and they tell you that something's going to go on your permanent record and it's going to follow you for the rest of your life.
I'm calling your bluff there, dickhead. But to be fair, Juliette Holme is now 83 years old, living in the United States, apparently, and is an English author of historical detective fiction.
That seems reasonable enough.
So
if I killed somebody, I feel like I'd be able to write about detective work.
Right. So again, that is kind of the question here that I walk away from this movie really is, they did what? And their punishment was what? They murdered her mom and their punishment was like barely anything. It does speak to a sensibility in this movie of understanding the position that these people are put in and feeling helpless. And I'm not going to say that was taken into consideration with their punishment, but like you said, there's a youthful exuberance to the way that they act and a youthful negligence to the way they treat things that almost has to come into play when you're making a decision like this on how to sentence someone, because they are just kids. In a lot of ways, irrational, moody, immature children.
Yeah, and really, I mean, you say, what was their punishment? The punishment, it wasn't the law. The punishment was that the one thing they were trying to prevent from happening, happened even harder.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
the separation was the real punishment.
Right. And, I think it's interesting, and it's a very much a choice by Peter Jackson to stop the movie when he stops it. He stops it as the murder has happened.
Which is also where he starts it.
Right. Which, again, is a very smart, circular way of telling the story. But at the same time, by closing the movie out when they close it out, we don't need to see the trial. We don't need to see any of that shit. And you know what? I feel like if this had been made maybe 10 years later, that's what we would have gotten. was all like, and it probably, if it had been made in the States, that's what we would have gotten.
Oh God, yeah.
We gotta fucking give them the court case and all the.
It would have been about the
drama,
the heroic lawyer that stopped the two girls from getting murdered.
right. Exactly. Exactly. It would have been the defense attorney who knew the legal system so well that he could get his clients off. Like, that's not an interesting story. This is the interesting story.
That sounds kind of dirty when you put it that way,
right? Well, and you know what?
He can do what for his clients now,
right? You know what? I will ask you though, and it's kind of a curious thing. The pride implications and the kind of the sexual implications of the movie aside, is this a better way to tell this kind of story? A true crime story? Is this a better way of telling it? Is this a more respectful way of telling it?
I think it's humanizing in a way that you wouldn't normally get.
But should we be humanizing these people? That's the question.
They are humans.
I know, but they've also committed horrible acts.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I'm on the side of humanize them. I'm not. Yeah, I'm merely just playing devil's advocate.
To dig into that would be digging into a lot of my own personal trauma that I'm not going to air out on your show.
Sure, which I totally understand. But again, it speaks to a question of the presentation of this could be considered problematic.
It could, but at the same time, people need to understand that that's out there,
and these things don't exist in a vacuum. Yeah,
and it also could, inform other people who are feeling, like they're in the same place. Like, maybe you want to figure out another way to do things.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe don't kill your mom with a brick.
Right. Well, and exactly. I mean, that's the thing, I said, I'm not taking the side of this as a problem. I'm taking the side of it's important to understand how people can get there so that maybe you don't get there. Maybe you understand.
The end of the road is never, that's never the story.
Right. Right. And showing us the relationship between Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky and just the raw emotion between the two. I mean, the scene where they're finally able to be intimate with one another is just one of the more well done lovemaking scenes I've ever seen. Because Peter Jackson really holds back and he gives it some time to breathe and some room to really, for you to experience it kind of along with the characters. And I appreciated that as the viewer. I appreciated that Peter Jackson's not sitting there and trying to turn it into something tawdry.
Well, and it could have been so exploitative, just considering, their actual age at the time.
Right, right.
It would have been so easy to make it absolutely disgusting.
Right. And it takes the deft hand of a skilled director to nothing wrong with exploitation, but in this specific scenario, there is.
Yeah, there are certain things that don't need to be exploited. Look at, most of Larry Clark's work.
Right. There is something to be said for exploitation, but there is something to be said for having the wherewithal to say, this is an intimate scene that's important for the growth of these two characters and for you as the audience to understand the emotional stakes that these two characters feel, because they're true, regardless of what they say, the story that's presented in this movie is a love story. Whatever Pauline Parker and Juliette Holmes say now is fine. It's not that I don't believe them, but the story that it's presented as it's presented in this film is being presented in the context of a love story or a romantic story between two characters.
Yeah, that's probably the most relatable way to get that across for a lot of people. I mean, and I feel like that it helps those who don't understand better, and it helps those who do understand feel seen at least.
Right.
And that's why I feel like telling those stories is important, even if, it's not exactly an end result worth glamorizing.
Right. And I am one of those people who I genuinely don't understand why we haven't made a serial killer movie or a true crime movie. I mean, we have made them, but why they're not more popular to make them like this, where it's like just examining the person's every day-to-day life. Like, I don't need to see the murders, but I want to understand the world that they were in and what was creating and pushing them and moving them in the direction that they went. And that's what this movie is. And that's why I was kind of so enthralled with this movie, is you get to see how they get there. And most of the time, in like 90% of every other true crime thing, this part is the part that they talk about in the police station. This is the part that they mention in the courtroom.
We're jumping for we're jumping for the sensationalizable part.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And, this movie, if it had been made by an American director, probably around the time, it would have opened with the murder, but not the way this one opens. It would have opened with the murder and then continued chronologically.
In the interrogation room.
Right.
And,
Right. Exactly. And
you're never going to see her again, so you might as well tell us the whole story. Yeah, all that shit.
Well, let me start at the beginning. And then it's like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, again, it takes a director like Peter Jackson to say, I want to make a movie where the two leads are the focus. Is this story going to be one that everybody in my country knows? Yes. But do they know this part? Do they know the human part? Because that's the other thing. Like we mentioned, this story is known in New Zealand. So I would assume a lot of people in New Zealand knew the facts of the case, but they're being presented with direct readings from the diary, dramatizations of their relationship within reason. I couldn't get it. I know that the fourth world stuff was a real thing that they were talking about. Whether or not they went into that world in their own minds is kind of subjective, but I like that they use those firsthand accounts, those diary entries to really show you like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is actually what was going on. At the beginning of the movie, they make a very clear point of saying this is read directly from the source material. Like, this is now verbatim.
For some reason, my brain went on a weird tangent thinking about like, other mildly infamous crime stories that aren't well known outside of their homeland. And are you familiar with Trey Parker's Cannibal the Musical?
Yes, I am.
Because like all of a sudden that feels like a similar tale where they took a story that pretty much just people in Colorado knew about the only man convicted of cannibalism there, and turned it into something relatable by way of a comedy musical.
Right.
And it still tells the story in a really interesting way.
And you know what? Like we've been saying, as much as maybe I kind of am wary because again, I'm wary of true crime, and this kind of become a true crime podcast in a lot of ways. But I think it's important because as someone who makes true crime content, something I've always wanted to avoid is leaning on and steering into the salacious, tawdry details. I don't think it serves anybody. I think it's just there for gross out or shock value.
Yeah. Again, sensationalism.
Right. And I'm not saying those things can't be presented in a way that's important or kind of worth talking about, but most people don't present them that way. People don't want to have those conversations.
There's a right and a wrong way.
Well, everybody, you want to make jokes about Jeffrey Dahmer eating penises. You don't want to have a conversation about why is Jeffrey Dahmer the way he was and what were the societal...
Yeah, he was lonely. He didn't want people to leave him alone.
Dude, Jeffrey Dahmer is such a bummer, man. He was just a really lonely gay man.
Yep.
Like,
if society were different, that story would have played out differently.
I would like to believe so. Maybe he still had the whole "don't leave me" thing.
Oh yeah, but it's still.
But that's he's not alone in that. Like, don't we all feel some level of separation anxiety in our own lives? It's just how exacerbated is it? But like nobody tells that story because again, the perception, I guess, in a lot of places, this country included, is if you tell that story, you're humanizing the killer. Therefore, you feel sorry for them. And I think to your point, as I would agree, humanizing them shows you something and gives you something more than, well, Jeffrey Dahmer was eating wieners. Like, who cares? I've heard that a million times now. Yeah. Give me something more to chew on.
Not wieners.
Yeah, no pun intended. But give me something. God, that was a poor choice of words. But seriously, like, give me something more. Don't just give me a retelling of his greatest hits. Give me two characters sitting in a room talking about what they want in the world and how they feel the world is not allowing them to achieve that.
Yeah, rather than another story of, Ted Bundy was kind of handsome.
Zac Efron would be perfect for that role. God. But to be fair, though, he's not terrible in that movie, all things considered.
I think he's got a bright future ahead of him that he still hasn't hit his potential. I think that he's gonna nail it hard one of these days.
Zac Efron's a funny dude, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good looking too.
Yeah. He knows what he's doing.
Not bad on the eyes, Zac Efron, as they would say. Yeah,
I know. We're coming in with the hot takes here, folks.
Yeah, Zac Efron's good looking. Holy moly, they're saying things nobody else has ever contemplated saying. I really wish they would, like, I know that they made like a Dahmer movie that had Jeremy Renner in it, of all people.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And then they made a Gacy movie that had
Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah, Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, or the character from Leprechaun. Isn't he the one who swallows the coin?
Yes, he was I think a little slow in the head in the original Leprechaun.
Boy.
Yeah.
And then he was in the Leprechaun reboot.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it was a direct sequel.
Yeah.
The first direct sequel.
That's what we needed, folks. But
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I like most of those movies, except for the Origins movie that doesn't have a fucking leprechaun in it.
Leprechaun in the Hood is still a true cinema gem. It should be in the American cinema AFI.
I just want to be like in those in the studio discussions where they were like, all right, this leprechaun, he went to space. It's the craziest thing we can do. What's crazier than space? Black people.
Rapping leprechauns. Hear me out. A leprechaun who can keep a beat.
I mean, he's pretty good, though.
I mean, yeah, Warwick Davis.
And one of the two of those Leprechaun in the Hood movies, I remember, like, there was definitely a plot where, like, the main characters dress up in drag and try to trick him into smoking a joint laced with 4-leaf clovers. Like, that takes a lot of creativity.
Those movies are, you know, how far we've strayed from Heavenly Creatures is beyond me. But I will tell you, there is part of me that, like we've been talking about with this like kind of movie, you know, when I think about humanizing people like this who have committed an act I can't fathom committing. I can fathom it, but I couldn't put myself I couldn't put myself directly in their shoes of committing the act. I can't say I've not thought about fucking.
Like I wanted to kill some people.
Who has?
I'm just not. I'm not going to do it.
Right. I just wish we had the emotional maturity as a culture to say, let's take a look at this seriously. And let's take a look at this in a way that maybe other people haven't. And actually, you know, as terrible as Jeffrey Dahmer is, like you said, he was still a human being with real human being problems. You know, there are some of them that are repugnant that don't deserve it.
Yeah, like look at like Charles Manson. Like there's not a good point in that story. There's no human story to tell there.
Yeah.
He was an absolute egotistical megalomaniac that wanted to start a race war, and that's all there was to it.
Also not a murderer.
No, he probably killed lots of Papa.
I mean, he probably killed a bunch of hobos.
Yeah, like I said, the one he almost definitely did was him killing a black pimp. Of course, it was
right.
So,
but
because he's a piece of shit,
right? But for me, I just there are some of these killers who deserve this kind of humanization, and we're seeing it now. I mean, they're kind of. What's kind of been the more du jour thing has been telling that story, but with a different character. So it's not directly them. It's like it's that person, but their crimes are being ascribed to somebody else. Like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, right?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one in that, like, he probably didn't do any of them. If
who? Henry Lee Lucas?
Henry, yeah, because
the real person, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, the real person did nothing, correct.
Because they would just bring him stuff. They would bribe him, basically. They would give him good stuff if he would just sign, like, oh, hey, we found these bodies. Did you do it? And he was like, yeah, sure, this is how I did it.
After you admit to the fifth one, you're already going to jail anyways. Like, what does it matter? You're already on death row, bro. Like, admit to whatever you want.
Yeah, complete, like, crazy aside. I have a friend who her grandfather was, I guess, the prosecutor in that case.
That's why.
And he has an original painting that Henry Lee Lucas made for him.
That's amazing.
And it is going to be hers someday. I have a picture of it somewhere. I can show you.
I have to ask you, how do you feel about murderabilia?
It's weird.
That's a light way of putting it. It's putting it lightly.
There's something so bizarre about that one in particular that I think it's interesting, at least.
You know, I mean, again, like you've mentioned, they're humans and they're doing they have all kinds of interests, right? You know, I'm not saying let's not view serial killers and people who commit crimes myopically, but this movie would go to show you shouldn't, because again, I empathize with the two female characters in this film a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's unfair to act like any one of us, if things went down a different path, couldn't have ended up exactly the same way.
I genuinely believe every human being is capable of murder. Like physically, maybe not, because again, physically is a different question. I'm talking about
just being pushed to that.
Yeah, if push came to shove, anyone is capable.
The only
of
option you have left, or you feel like it's the only option you have.
Yeah. And some people will tell you I would never do it, but like you'd probably be the first one to do it if you tell me that, because I have no problem admitting it. Like I know I have been at that point in my life.
Yeah.
Where I felt that way.
I don't want to do it.
No. Well, and you know what? We clearly haven't, because we're sitting here talking about it and neither one of us are in jail.
I've become a great mediator. However,
right.
If it had to happen, I'm not going down.
Right. And again, like in this movie, you really can see, again, the job of Peter Jackson ultimately in this movie is to convince you and give you a reason to believe and sympathize with Melanie Lynskey as to why she killed her mom. Mm-hmm. And you can at least understand her character and those human being, theoretically, internal reasoning. And I think by the end of the movie, I'm on board.
Yeah, it's easy to be like, well, yeah, what a worthless woman. Why is she so horrible all the time?
Right.
The world doesn't need that.
Right. But like to get to that point, because like you said, like she's terrible, but terrible people don't deserve to die. Yeah. But you can see Melanie Lynskey's character getting pushed and prodded.
That's also the curse of childhood. The curse of, no matter what rights people try to open up over time, like parents have a tendency to treat children as a belonging.
Right.
And sometimes you feel trapped, and lashing out in one way or another is your only option. Sometimes it goes to the extreme.
Right. And again, look, these girls are growing up in a time and place without technology too. So it's like so far removed from our own reality now. It's kind of hard to understand. When she left, she's gone. Unless she has her address. Like
they weren't going to be writing letters.
No, fucking of course not. And
I'm sure that they would not have allowed them to write letters just based on the way things were.
Right. And again, there's also this, the end of the movie is so heartbreaking because you see, there's this scene playing out. So at the end of the movie, that one of them's on a boat and the other one's on the dock. And Melanie Lynskey's like, no, come back. I'm coming for you. But it's being juxtaposed against her murdering her mom. Mm-hmm. And you're realizing that like she is now in control of her own destiny. And she's the reason they're breaking up. And she realizes that once it's too late. Mm-hmm. And that's what's just so goddamn heartbreaking about this movie. Is what like you said, they're pushing themselves to try and prevent something from happening, but in doing so, they make it happen.
Yeah, it not only happened, but it became their fault.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you were worried about you two separating. Well, guess what? Not only are you separating, but again, theoretically, supposedly, they never saw each other again.
Sorry, you said you two separating. I was like, did they do that? I thought they were, still releasing albums that nobody wanted.
That's fair. God damn it. I do love when someone can come in with some fucking wordplay shit. Thank you.
I heard that, but it wasn't even me trying to wordplay. I heard you too, and I was like, are they together?
Are they still together?
I don't remember.
Is it still a beautiful day? I do wonder though, and I'm curious kind of your take on it. When we think about, these kinds of like character-based dramas based around, true events, and this one's based off of two real people. Do you think that this movie told the story in a way that the people in New Zealand would have appreciated as well? Because that's the kind of thing I'm having a hard time grasping was this also doing enough for a New Zealand audience? Obviously it did enough for a Western audience, for American audiences.
I think it's more a question of what the climate around that story was.
Right.
I don't know what the acceptance of that. I'm sure that, the way news worked, especially back then, it was just like, oh, did you hear about these horrible little murderers? So I'm sure it opened up some eyes.
These two little gay teenagers.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like
the worst thing you could be.
Other than a gay woman. Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, really? Like it's, again, like the fact that, to speak to the gay angle of the movie, it's not, they obviously it's more throughout. I don't know how to explain it. They're not like punching you in the face with it.
Yeah.
Just, this is two women in love.
It's just a part of nature. Oh, wow. What a concept.
Mm-hmm. You mean in nature that it happens naturally? But the Bible said Fuck your Bible.
Did it though?
Yeah. No. No, it did not. Not anywhere did it say it. And again, that's what I appreciate about this movie is that those things that I assumed and expected were going to happen, those kinds of conversations, those kinds of scenes where it's like, oh, they're being gay and shit like that, nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Which I shouldn't have been surprised because it's a Peter Jackson movie and he's a competent, beyond competent filmmaker, but it was refreshing for it to just be, well, she's just a little bit more liberal, a little bit more free-spirited than we're okay with. And her mom is, a teacher and the sex therapist. Is that what she was? Or I couldn't figure out what was going on with her mom.
I'm not sure.
Kate Winslet's mom, was she a therapist who had sex with her clients? Because that's kind of what they intimated, right?
Where do I get one of those? Sorry,
right.
That's the wrong train of thought, isn't it?
But you know what I mean? Like, I that was my perception of what was going on, and that was what kind of rubbed Melanie Linsky's mom the wrong way. Talking about a lot of rubbing in this episode.
How dare a free spirit in that age? Absolutely not.
Free thinker, yeah. It's the free thinker thing. You've poisoned my child's mind by allowing them to think that they don't have to act a certain way. Like, so
if you don't fit in the box that I already have outlined, then be gone.
Yeah. No, yeah. This was a really interesting movie. And again, for me, it really has kind of risen to the top of what I would consider to be the best thing Peter Jackson's ever made. And man, like, he's made shit that I would still consider to be some of my favorite things. I really love The Frighteners. I know it's just a fun movie. It's got its problems. 2.5 hours long. There's a lot of movie there. You're getting your money's worth with The Frighteners.
I remember when it wasn't 2.5 hours long. It's probably better off with the longer version.
Do you know what the crazy thing about that movie is? Have you ever seen the making of that movie? It's 2 hours long.
I guess
it's a full-length fucking movie.
Oh, I miss those days.
I love it, man. Like the Beast Within, the Alien, all those Alien documentaries that they did on the quadrilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, dude, those are like candy, man.
I haven't watched those, and I have them sitting there waiting. Someday I'm going to do it.
You should do it. They even did one. I don't think they did one for Covenant, but they did one for Prometheus.
Well, that's because Covenant eats shit.
Yeah, but Prometheus kind of eats shit too.
I don't mind. I like Prometheus,
but it still kind of eats shit.
Things. But there's nothing interesting in Covenant.
No, I agree. Covenant
except for the gay robot stuff.
Finger me, daddy. I mean, should we have just talked about Alien Covenant? Is that the true Pride Month film? Michael Fassbender fingering himself?
It was so ahead of its time.
Gay robots. My God, they're really pushing. They're pushing it.
I'll never forget that line. You blow and I'll do the fingering. Because I remember laughing out loud in the theater. They had to know.
It was
that whole movie felt like a big fuck you. It felt like Prometheus didn't get the reception that Ridley Scott wanted. So he said, "Oh, you want an alien movie? I'll give you a fucking alien movie. I'm gonna give you an alien movie like you wouldn't fucking believe." And then he, shat that thing out.
Yeah, I say he dropped his pants and took a big fat shit.
I'm a very forgiving person. For me to hate a movie takes a lot. And I hated that movie.
I will tell you this. I don't think we've ever had this conversation. I will tell you that there are only 2 Ridley Scott movies that I like. And they were made back to back, Alien and Blade Runner, and everything else can
that's
take
fair.
A short walk.
I think he has a couple other good ones, but I will say between Ridley and Tony, every time I think about them, I think the wrong key died.
Well, so
I always Tony never aimed for the same heights, but he was way more consistent.
I was
way more fun.
I'm trying to remember, somebody else and I had that exact same conversation where it's like Tony Scott was the real deal. It's like
he was. He never put on airs of being some pompous, phony asshole like his brother tends to do.
Well, I mean, I honestly am not a fan of Ridley Scott because at this point, he's just bloviating. He's just stroking himself. And
everyone told him he was the great one.
Yeah.
Everybody told him he was so great. And I don't know where that started because
Alien. Blade Runner. Well, Alien, not Blade Runner, because everybody thought Blade Runner was shit when it first came out. Newsflash, folks. Blade Runner is not some great film when it first came out. Everybody hated it for the most part. I think it was Alien, right? It has to be. Josh. Yo, internet got fucked up. Hello.
Oh, there we go.
You're good. I think to answer your question, I think it was Alien.
Yeah.
It had to be.
Like I said, and I was trying to say, like, also completely writing off the work that people like Dan O'Bannon put into that, beforehand.
Oh, and then when David Giler and Walter Hill tried to steal the entire movie from Dan O'Bannon.
Yep.
Yeah. Those assholes. Look, Walter Hill, I respect the man for what he did. David Giler, piss up a rope, pal.
I know almost nothing about David Giler, so that's probably the best for history.
Piss up a rope, pal.
Yep.
Try to steal Alien. Jesus, dude.
Yeah. So what this, not to get onto a totally different tangent already, but what this does have me thinking about is because we mentioned, obviously besides Jackson and Sam Raimi, like, they're the few guys that kind of broke out of being horror directors into doing something more serious.
Right.
And I think so much about, like, the guys that tried and it never worked out. Like, Wes Craven spent his whole career not wanting to do horror movies, and they kept rewriting all of his movies. Like Deadly Friend was just supposed to be a nice robot movie, I think, and they turned it into a horror movie. He had to wait until the 90s to do that Meryl Streep movie, Music of the Heart, and nobody saw it. And he helped create Dawson's Creek, but like he was doing horror movies literally until he died, because that was the only thing that would pay the bills. And I don't think he was ever interested in most of them.
Well, if the never, don't fall asleep or don't go to sleep, never sleep again, excuse me.
Yeah.
If never sleep again is to be believed, which I believe it, obviously, because it's coming directly from the horse's mouth. He had a really jaded experience with the horror community and like the way that they were, reacting to his stuff.
Oh, I can imagine so.
Yeah. But again, like you said, like the whole thing of like trying to bust out of that box is really hard, because once you're in there, it's kind of hard to get out of there.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, like almost who would have been successful that never broke out of that mold. Like, I know, I feel like George Romero also was one of those guys that kept trying and it never paid off. So he had to go back to the zombie well, even though he had a lot of social commentary on the table.
Oh yeah.
But I'm wondering, like the schlockier guys, like what if Charles Band made a period piece drama? What would that look like?
Or
does
Lloyd
he have
Kaufman.
it in him? Oh, I think Wood can do anything. So
and to your point, like, or someone like Tom Holland or Joe Dante, like they kind of like Joe Dante kind of pushed, Tom Holland kind of pushed. Again, success is all in the eye of the beholder in a lot of ways. So, I think you're right. Is it better to have made a bunch of horror movies and those be remembered and never get to make anything else, or try to make a bunch of other things and fail and have only made one horror movie?
Or like, Tobe Hooper, I think, was another one that, he originally wanted the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to be seen as a comedy,
right?
Called Head Cheese, like. I think it's one of those things, especially back then, you do, one of those movies and you're pinpointed into that forever. Yeah.
Well, and Wes Craven avoided being lumped into the X-rated world because he was originally in porn. He worked on Deep Throat.
All of them were.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's the other thing. He worked on Deep Throat in some unnamed capacity. But yeah, everybody was working in porn before horror because that was the fucking adjacent. That's why horror movies get that bad rap, is because of the 70s with porn directors,
because they traveled the same basic circuit.
Yeah, same road. Yeah. Bob Shea was walking around with those movies, just like they were walking around with Deep Throat. He was walking around with Reefer Madness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard not to be like, well, X and Y must be similar. So there you go. Like, they're the same thing. Yeah. No, I don't know. I was thinking about that because Sam Raimi is kind of stuck. Maybe not so much anymore. He's getting those Marvel money, baby.
Yeah. I'm happy he's back. That's all I'll say.
I'm happy he made a movie. I'm not sure he's back though.
There were enough touches. There was Pizza Papa. That's all I needed.
Sure. Pizza balls, dude. Somebody saw Eric Andre one too many times.
Oh, I know.
I can't help but wonder if that's where that came from, because there's only one other time Pizza Ball shows up in anything, and it's motherfucking Eric Andre talking about pizza balls.
My man Video Game Donkey did a whole video about him once too, I think.
But was that pre or post Eric Andre?
I don't remember. It was probably after, but still.
That's fair.
It was a pretty solid dissection into how pizza balls were the future.
Would you say it is time to deliver said pizza ball?
I'm ready.
Peter Jackson has had a career that anyone would be envious of. Like you mentioned, he went from horror to saying, look, fuck you, I can make a serious movie. I mean, this is a serious movie. This is a movie that if a American director had made it, it would have won awards. Lots of them. Like a lot of them. The only reason it didn't is because it's a foreign film. And because it's a foreign film, it can't win anything other than Best Original Screenplay, which it didn't even win. But
yeah, why do all their vowels sound funny?
Right, exactly. But that for me is like my big takeaway from this movie is, like you said, Peter Jackson went from horror to this, to Lord of the Rings, to now just like once you make Lord of the Rings, you can make whatever the hell you want. Right. I mean, you could literally do anything. And he kind of has, working on the Beatles, working on random World War II documentaries, making The Lovely Bones because he was bored, stuff like that. Like when you make a successful film like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, you can do whatever you want. But this movie is a statement. This is I can make movies. Want to see? Yeah, this is a movie, capital M movie.
Yeah, it's just it felt like a letter of intent. It's saying I can do this too, and I'm going to whenever I feel like it. But first, Michael J. Fox, get over here. We're going to do some weird shit with Jeffrey Combs.
I love that movie, man. Absolutely love that movie. As much as I love Lord of the Rings, and as much as I have enjoyed Heavenly Creatures, Frighteners, man, like that's still, for all of its flaws, it's
it's been a good decade. I need to revisit it again.
You should.
And mentioning Jeffrey Combs, Stuart Gordon was another one of those directors who I think was a lot more intelligent and had a lot more to say. And even the movies that he made, a lot of them still had something to say, but I feel like not enough of them got the respect that they needed. And he never quite got the budgets he deserved because people just wanted more reanimators out of him.
I will put another name on the table that is in the conversation for directors who started in horror and kind of branched out. I mean, he's kind of returned now, I think, thankfully. David Cronenberg.
Yeah, he was. I was
took
not
a little
mentioning
jaunt
him
around
because he did it, and because it got almost too far off the track for a while there.
Yeah, Eastern Promises, a little bit of, was Eastern Promises his or no? History of Violence.
Yeah,
and Eastern Promises.
Yeah, both of those.
Yeah,
and then he did that car one that wasn't good, and then I didn't see him out to the Cosmopolis, the one with Robert Pattinson just sitting in a car.
The R-Pats one.
Yeah. It is interesting that he like there's something in Cronenberg that's like, I've got to take these Twilight children and do something subversive with them. Hey man,
I have not seen the newest Batman, but I am a staunch defender of Robert Pattinson because he's a good actor. He's a good actor.
Yeah, he's not bad at all. I think it literally is just that, like, they took a role that they thought wasn't going to go anywhere, and then it got 4 sequels. So,
and you know what? If you make the Twilight movies, you can go make whatever the fuck you want after.
Yep. And afterwards, he made how many movies where he ends up jerking off?
A lot.
Like there was.
So my question to you is, do you know what original script won in 94 over Heavenly Creatures? Was it Forrest Gump? No, 94 was Pulp Fiction, right? Yep. We all know.
I was going to say, no, I was thinking of The Upset because fucking Forrest Gump, man.
Podcasters Roger Avery and Quentin Tarantino's film Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, right. Fucking Silent Hill screenwriter Roger Avery.
Yeah. Roger Avery, guy who's been trading on the fact that he was co-writer on Pulp Fiction for his entire career.
I mean, and I liked his other work. I liked Killing Zoe. I thought The Rules of Attraction was pretty fucking good, but like also whoops, you killed somebody, dude. That's kind of rough.
Wait, what?
He was in jail for like vehicular manslaughter.
Oh, good.
Did you not know about that?
No.
Oh, yeah. That's good. Why you haven't heard much from him in a while.
God. And this.
Yeah. Yep. Oops. Sorry to break that one to you.
I mean, again, I'm not a Tarantino fan, so nothing about anyone that he works with being scumbag surprises me. So,
but I feel like maybe it was just a different time and place, but I remember the era of the people that are like, well, actually all the good stuff in Pulp Fiction was just Roger Avery's. Tarantino stole it. And I'm like, all right, what? All right.
I mean,
then why didn't Roger Avery make more good movies?
Well, I mean, to be fair,
but
why didn't Tarantino make any more good movies? Hey-o!
I won't get into that one.
I know. I have the minority opinion here.
I just have to deal with the fact that he's the person that made them.
Well, that's the problem. That is the ultimate problem. You can have your Tarantino movies. You got to deal with fucking Tarantino. He's your problem. Yeah. But I have distanced myself from him to begin with.
The thing about him doing a podcast, though, is that you will get 10 times as much information crammed into the same amount of audio time that we are putting into this right now.
Yeah.
Because, he doesn't know how to take a breath. Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. I can't stand for the self-aggrandizing bullshit of Quentin Tarantino. That podcast is going to be two dudes sticking hoses up their butts and smelling their own farts for 2 hours.
Yeah. I'm going to find out, but
and you know what? I'll listen to it too, the first episode, just so I can hear how amazing the sound quality is. And we're sitting in my whatever with all the VHS. Fuck you. Whatever. Who cares? Whatever. This movie, Heavenly Creatures, it should have won the best script that year. I know Pulp Fiction's a good movie. I'm not going to argue that. I won't argue the quality of that movie. But you know what? I liked this movie a lot, man.
It's got more emotional stakes, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm. It's a more serious story.
Yeah. And while I think Pulp Fiction does have that, especially with like Samuel L. Jackson's character, it's not the same.
No.
That said, anybody in the Houston area, July 31st, 6 p.m., we'll be doing a Pulp Fiction movie party that I'll be hosting. So, come on down, maybe do a little dance and win a bad motherfucker wallet.
Are you, or do you want someone to show up in a GIMP suit? And if not, why can't it be me?
If they do, yes, please. That's going right on the social media.
If you show up in a GIMP suit, he will post it on social media.
Yeah,
Alamo Draft House is on top of this.
No, I'm being put in charge of that stuff very soon. So yes, people will see that.
Check out this GIMP that showed up for the Pulp Fiction showing.
I mean, that was my first thought for a costume, but I'm like, that'll cost too much.
Yeah, well, and what do you do with it when you're done?
You don't know the people I know.
No, I know the people that I know, and they could probably find something to do with it too.
Yeah.
But there's
I think I'm just gonna dress up like Mia. That'll be nice.
You know what? As far as I'm concerned,
I never get to take my shoes off at work.
See? As far as I'm concerned, make your own happiness, right? And that's what the two characters in this movie should have learned, and they did. And they learned it too late. And when they learned it, Melanie Linsky's mom was dead. Got to make your own. You got to find happiness where you can. Take happiness in those little moments, because you know what? The little moments are fleeting.
That's true.
You can't just kill your mom and fix everything.
Maybe you don't know.
No, that's fair.
Have you tried?
Yeah, no, I don't want to kill if I killed my mom, I would make more problems for myself.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either. We get along pretty well now.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
Once upon a time.
And to be fair,
could have been an option.
It's not like Melanie Linsky and her mom didn't get along.
Yeah.
It's just that they were coming to a head over certain things that Melanie Linsky could not handle. Which again, like you said, youthful exuberance. Everything when you're a kid feels like the end of the world.
Yeah. And the fact that you are the belonging of an adult who you never asked to create you in the first place.
Right. Put me back. No, I'm with you. Like you said, there's a lot of subtext in the movie and a lot of angles that the movie kind of looks at. Like you said, the kids, the adults versus the teenagers, those kind of two disparities, the haves and the have-nots, the more conservative parents versus the kind of more socially liberal parents. Yeah, this is really a film from a much more mature filmmaker than most people would assume 1994's Peter Jackson was.
And the fact that, as I was saying, the fact that he got more chances to continue to mature, whereas a lot of people, you do that and follow it up with the Frighteners, they never give you money again. He got so lucky.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you go from this to the Frighteners. It's like the Frighteners was a failure It was a box office.
Yeah, it
bomb.
wasn't just that it was him back on his bullshit. It was that it lost people money.
Right. And it lost American studios money because it was an American film. It was a fucking Universal movie. You know, that was the other thing. The Frighteners was the first time he works in the American system, which, like I'm never going to do an episode on the Frighteners because I did like a 5-hour one with Mike over on the projection booth. And I'm not exaggerating. It was like the general conversation was as long as the conversation we did on all of the Bill and Ted movies. It was like that for just one movie. So if you want to listen to that, go check that out. But The Frighteners is one of like my favorite, maybe just horror movies, really. I know it's not really scary, but it's a fun movie. I like the world that those characters inhabit and the rules that govern that world.
Yeah, that was seeing that as a kid, that was the thing that stood out to me the most was how well thought out that universe was.
Right. It's like so visually distinct and just interesting. And it again, it's coming from the mind of Peter Jackson, who clearly has him and Fran Walsh clearly have a lot of really interesting, fun, unique, creative ideas. Dead Alive, The Frighteners, Heavenly Creatures. Again, what makes Heavenly Creatures great is that they inject their own personality into it. All of that magical world stuff. Is it in the reality of that case? Sure, but they didn't have to contextualize it, but yet they did. And it totally works and it makes sense. And again, I just don't think any other filmmaker would have had the nuts to do it because it's a nuts thing. It's like, do you have the balls to really say, I'm making a true crime movie, but I'm making it my own way with my own weirdo stuff in it? Like most directors would just go, this is a work for hire thing. I'm making it the way you want it. He's like, I'm doing this the way I want. And there's going to be weird things that literally don't make any sense because they're not real. It's a sensibility that is not, it's not one that it's a sensibility you should have if you're working in this industry. You should be willing to be like, I'm just going to do my thing.
Well, the important thing to me is being able to take the thing that's not real,
right?
The thing that is fantastic and make that the whole point.
Right. And it is.
And that's what he does.
Yeah. The name of the movie is Heavenly Creatures. I mean, it knows what kind of movie it is, and it knows what the important part of this story is. And it's the interaction between two girls who have created a world that they escape into that becomes threatened by the outside forces. And they feel it's necessary to go and kill somebody's mom because of it.
Yeah, because at that age, all you have is your escape.
Yeah. And when your escape's threatened, you what are you going to do? So final thoughts on Heavenly Creatures, Josh.
I'm gonna come out and say it. I think this Jackson guy's got a good career ahead of him.
Right.
I think maybe, just maybe, he might have his finger on the pulse somewhere. But I'm surprised that it, even now, I feel like it doesn't get brought up in a lot of conversation. It's not easy to find right now.
Right.
It doesn't, I don't think it's currently streaming on any real major services in the US. Like, it's just, it's so weird because it feels like it should be considered something monumental, but it also came out in an age of so many monumental movies, one after another, that just
literally the same year as Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. The fact that, it was up against that and Shawshank and fucking Forrest Gump and
no, I don't know. Forrest Gump's a classic.
I mean, it's got moments, but it also,
I'd like to go home now.
But it really just boils down to, just keep your head low. Yep. Don't make waves or you're going to get AIDS and die, you piece of shit.
Whoa. Keeping it real.
Sorry, I got some thoughts about that movie.
What, Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a good movie.
No, but again, isn't it funny when he has to go pee and he tells the president?
What is the Mr. President, I have to pee. Hilarious comedy.
Yeah, there we go. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Forrest, you know what the weirdest piece of anything about Forrest Gump is? The fact that the thing that has outlasted almost the movie at this point is a goddamn restaurant.
I see. I forgot about that.
Bubba Gump Shrimp Co.
Yeah.
Like an entire fucking restaurant chain exists because of a movie about a guy who says I have to pee to JFK.
Yeah.
Makes sense, I guess.
I mean, I think the box of chocolates thing kind of slightly outranks it in cultural, penetration.
That's fair. That's fair.
And at the very least, Like, have you seen Cecil B. Demented?
No.
Oh my God. I think it's one of John Waters' more underrated movies, but there's a whole subplot of them crashing the set of Gump Again, starring Kevin Nealon. And it is absolutely hysterical.
I swear to God, that Forrest Gump sequel book sounds like craziness.
Oh, I've heard it's an absolute nightmare. I've heard the regular book's not great either.
I think in the sequel, he goes to space with a monkey.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Rocket Man starring Harlan Williams?
I love that movie. Wild Bill Overbeck.
Oh my God.
You're mentioning the films that are fucking golden to me. I love Rocket Man.
I loved it as a child. I have not seen it in a very long time.
Watch it again, bro. Harlan Williams, man.
I've heard rumors that apparently it was a repurposed potential Ernest script, which is why it was, a Disney release, because apparently they had a whole factory just churning those things out until they stopped making money. And then those guys made the rest of them on their own.
I'm just going to point out that Jim Varney is a really good actor, and I got no problem with Ernest.
Oh no, you're talking to one of the world's foremost Ernest experts. So,
ladies and gentlemen, Josh Stewart, Ernest expert.
There's so much more to it than you might think.
Tell me about Miak. Tell me about the fucking Miak. No,
in Bavaria this time of year.
I love Rocket Man. We're discounting ourselves as credible movie critics here by talking about, hey, you guys like heavyweights? Yes.
No, heavyweights. I would literally kill to see the original version of that movie, because you can literally see all the lines that they dubbed over for profanity and stuff.
Yeah.
So you remember, oh God, the Seymour Butts joke?
Yeah. Nobody see more butts than you, Uncle Tony.
You know what the original joke was?
No.
Peter Fitz. I said, who's Peter Fitz? Oh, anybody's if you push it hard enough. Apparently the whole movie was filled with jokes like that. And if you look, you can see the kid clearly says Peter Fitz.
That's like How I Met Your Mother, like the peanut butter and jam joke. Like they were going to try to pass that off in a kid's movie.
Yep. See, that's the thing. I have a sneaking suspicion that it wasn't supposed to be a kid's movie. Because I think I'm willing to bet that it was either filmed independently or filmed as a Touchstone movie. And then Disney was like, oh, we can just turn this into a Disney movie.
I'll tell you what, though, I still love it though.
Oh, me too. I will always love that. And I will always assume that it is the secret predecessor to Dodgeball, because he's playing the same fucking character.
Thank you.
They're literally the same.
Yes. Tony Perkins Sr., the lighting fixture king. It is. Yes. I am a huge fan of that movie. I am unabashedly, I don't care. It's one of those kids movies that it's not for kids. It's not a kids movie.
I think wasn't it one of the first projects written by Judd Apatow before he got into making 2.5 hour long comedies without any jokes?
Right. And Paul Feig is in the movie too.
Yeah.
As an actor.
He's not a bad actor, and he's not always a bad director. He just, when he doesn't know how to rein his actors in, that goes on for too long.
He really doesn't know how to rein his actors in.
But when he does a good job.
We just had 5 hours of Chris Hemsworth saying really funny stuff. Keep it on the fucking floor.
You know what? All the Chris Hemsworth stuff was gold, though. I'm going to let that pass.
No way. No
But the scene with
way.
the dean of the college flipping them off for 10 minutes, that shit's got to go.
The power of Patty compels you. That's all I'm going to say. The power of Patty compels you.
See, I forgot some of it. Okay?
You get a car, and you get, what is this? 2004? What era are you making jokes in?
Anyway, Spy was good. Mostly because of fucking Jason Statham is still. I love that guy went from being really funny and charming in Guy Ritchie's first couple of movies, and then he became a secret action star out of nowhere. So much so that everyone forgot he was really fucking funny. Yeah,
he's hilarious. Jason Statham's a funny guy.
Yeah. And I feel like we're not giving him the respect he deserves.
Well,
we'll save that for another time.
When he's in the Fast and the Furious movies, I don't know what you expect. They're not writing those characters with nuance.
He's pretty good in those. He's pretty good.
But is it about family?
Ostensibly.
One might say it is.
They keep finding new members. So.
Yeah, right. They're just fuckers are coming out of the. Oh, Dom has a secret brother now. Is John Cena believable enough for you? They could have been birthed by the same mother, maybe. They could have punched their way out of the same womb or whatever the hell they did. Muscle-bound monsters that they are.
Yeah, but you've never seen Cena let himself go between projects like Vin Diesel does.
That's fair.
Which, that's fair. It's not like I do any better, but like, oh man, seeing those pictures is so weird.
What?
Like just the shots of Vin Diesel when he stops working out.
Just looks like a dude.
Yeah.
Kind of like so bigger guy Vin Diesel. I mean, he's a nerd at heart. He plays D&D. He knows what's up.
Yeah, he made Ridley games that were better than the movies.
Fair. God. Speaking of games that are better than the movies, that King Kong game, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Right? King Kong is a movie, though?
I'm sorry. You mean Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie?
Yes, that one. The one that doesn't have a HUD or an interface because it's supposed to be immersive.
Yeah, it was a easy 1,000 points in the early days of Xbox 360 achievements. So
this is, Josh, we should do this more often. We should do this more often because you're hitting shit that I get that a lot of other people wouldn't. Yeah, it was an easy 1,000 points. I sold them
for years, so I remember that was one of the bells of the bargain bin.
And boy, the other thing I remember is you were able to grab. As Kong, you could the whole exciting thing as Kong was grabbing the T-Rexes and going like that. And like popping their mouths open. Like that was, look at that.
The big selling point was, it's cinematic and it's got multiple play styles. And
right. You play as Kong and then you play as Adrian Brody's character, whose name you don't remember.
Jack something?
Jack.
Maybe? Was he?
If it was Heavyweights, his last name would be Mehoff. Peter Fitz. I'm gonna have to go watch Heavyweights now and see that. I've never noticed that before.
You're never going to unsee it now.
It's like have you ever
Jack
seen
Driscoll? I was right.
Have you ever seen animatronic Hagrid head in Harry Potter?
Probably not, but I've got a pretty intense Harry Potter ban in my life.
I get it.
Even before, I just fell out hard early on.
I get it, but if you ever go back and watch, they use a giant animatronic head for the shots where it's clearly not Robbie Coltrane. And it is a giant, like massive animatronic Hagrid head that they have on display now.
For what?
So when there's like shots of him walking, like, okay, so the first movie where they're in the lighthouse and Harry Potter's sitting by the fireplace and Hagrid comes in the door, because Robbie Coltrane is a big guy, but not that physically imposing. They had to put an extra in the suit. But because obviously you see his face, they put a giant animatronic head so that they could kind of get away with it. However, once you notice it, dude, you can never unsee it. You'll never, it's like Lord of the Rings when you notice where they made, like where they're using, where Peter, speaking of Peter Jackson, where he's using the tricks.
Yeah.
Once you
or
see
when you
it,
notice like the one guy wearing the Reeboks or whatever.
well, I'm more talking like those scenes where it's like when Gandalf shows up and it's like Frodo, Gandalf, and then like it cuts to a little person actor jumping into the wagon. That's
when you see the magical seams.
Yeah.
Breaking loose.
Right. Yeah. Of all the things you're like, well, that's another actor with a wig on. It's like that. It's like, I can't unsee this now. I don't know if I want to watch Heavyweights knowing this. It may forever alter my perception of the film.
I think
Peter Fitz, huh? That's a good one. Yeah. So we've deviated pretty far here towards the end of the episode, but
I'm known if nothing else, then
I like
deviant.
it. I'm a big deviant, folks. I'm the biggest deviant in Houston. Lock me up. I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm not the one talking about gimp suits at the movie theater, but all right.
That's me, not you. So Josh, where can people find you when you're not here on my show?
As stated before, I basically live at the Alamo Drafthouse, the La Centera location over in Katy, Texas, as the event supervisor, and I wear a bunch of other hats. So I'm in charge of all the special events and stuff right now. So I don't go home a whole lot, but it's okay because I like it there. But I do, you can just find my garbage and link it in the show notes. If there's anything worthwhile. Mostly I just keep a pretty heavily updated Letterboxd account where sometimes I will review a movie. Sometimes I will use a movie to ruminate on whatever's going on in my life and how that movie relates to it. It's more just like a diary. And sometimes it's really embarrassing, but I let everybody look at it anyway. Otherwise I'm on Twitter. I'm on the Facebook. I don't do anything for myself right now, but I have ideas. And maybe one day I'll do something with them. And until then, I'm not going to talk about them because somebody else could steal them and run away.
Exactly. Don't let anyone else steal the ideas that are in your head. Thought crimes, baby. Don't let him do it.
Actually, one of those ideas was a podcast called Thought Crimes, but it's THOT, and it's about like ho shit going on.
Yo, you guys got any ho shit going on? Come talk about it on Thought Crimes. You're gonna be the new Perez Hilton. Are you gonna be the new Perez Hilton? Spill the fucking tea.
Oh, but we're not gonna demonize any of these people. Absolutely not.
I mean, by bringing light to it, aren't we somewhat making a moral judgment on it?
Oh, I'm ready to celebrate their existence.
That's fair. Yo, it's Josh and Chris at Thought Crimes. Oh yeah.
Really, I just get ideas for good titles, and then I can never go past that.
I mean, hey, like I said, I'm a huge fan of wordplay, man. I'm a fan of any clever pun or clever joke using the English language, the stupidest language of them all, because right are three different words.
Yep, but one that in about a month or so I should have a degree in. So,
well, there you go. See, and as we say, thank God for that, because somebody's got to teach me how to speak good, and I don't know how. So maybe you can help me. As for me, cstashy.com is where I am for all the things that I work on. Plenty of other podcasts. This show, culturecast.com, patreon.com/culturecast. Go there for all the things that I work on. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. This has been fun. Let's not wait another year.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best not to. A lot has gone on in that year.
I'm going to do my best to not to.
I'm glad that this year, I'm glad I survived it. It started off real rough.
I hear you.
And things are really, really good now. And I'm not usually want to be able to say those words.
Good. Well, here's hoping the next time you and I podcast together, things are still good, right?
I think they will be.
Yeah.
I think things are going to be just fine. For me, I don't know about, my state government or anything, but
well, you know what
on
they
a personal
say.
level, I'm going to be okay.
It's not like you live in a state where there are problems.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so we watched it. You should too. So catch us on the next episode.